Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. And about 4 years ago, I set up a podcast called A Celtic State of Mind with a guy called Kevin Graham. He was on the first episode. We did it round the kitchen table. Kevin Graham joins me today. Welcome to the show, Kev.
Oh, it's brilliant, man, brilliant.
And we are also here with Lawrence Connolly and Anthony Haggerty for a big one. It's a big game. Let's not deny it, Anthony. I don't know how you feel about getting up on the morning of a game like this. I tend to avoid Twitter other than seeing when the team line is confirmed. I don't get involved in all this battle nonsense. I just see it as a game of football. How do you approach a game like this today?
Do you know what I did today? I watched a documentary called In Praise of Caesar, and it was shown the day after Celtic won the League and Cup double against Dundee in 1988. And I watched it because there's a line from Ian Archer, which I thought was terrific at the time, and I'm going to bring it up. And he said, near the end, he said, "They say the joy's gone out of football and it's no longer the beautiful game it once was, but they weren't at Parkhead yesterday." Now, there's a cracking musical montage where it shows you goals for the season, and then it focuses on the Ibrox game when Paul McStay and Andy Walker scored. Celtic 1-2-1 to guarantee the title. But it was Ian Archer's words that were going through my head all week. And if I was John Kennedy, I'd have been drumming that into the players all week. I'd have showed them the documentary for a start and then say to them, how can the joy of going out of football for Celtic this season of all seasons, a totally, utterly joyless season for the supporters so far this campaign. So see today, I want Celtic players to rediscover the joy of playing football, rediscover the joy of football, rediscover the joy of winning against your rivals in a big match at Ibrox. Right, I want them to rediscover the joy and pride of playing for the Celtic jersey, the badge and the crest and the cause. Right, I want them to rediscover the joy of play for your interim manager, John Kennedy. I want you to discover the joy of playing football for yourselves as players. But most importantly of all, I want the players to go out at Ibrox and rediscover the joy of football and winning and dedicate a victory today to you and I, Kevin and Lawrence, to the supporters. Readdress that balance and bring some football joy back to everybody today. My dad ran an amateur team 10 years ago, well, for 10 years in the 80s, and their solitary one-word motto was commitment. I want to see that for the Celtic team today. Every department, every position, sheer, utter commitment. And if they lose, so be it. But you'll know that I don't want to lose to a team that's more committed than us today. Nah, that's totally unacceptable. You know, tomorrow starts a new era at Celtic with Dominic Mackay coming in, his new role as a CEO. What better way to embark on this new chapter by a victory in the bag against your derby rivals, and then you can go about unveiling your DOF and your new manager as the week continues. That, to me, would bring the joy back to a lot of Celtic supporters starting today.
Listen, you mentioned Ian Archer, Lawrence, and he's someone that I would describe as a wordsmith. You know, when you look through the archives of old newspapers where Ian Archer was writing nondescript match reports, they stuck in your mind. He wrote them like a work of art. Unbelievable writer, unbelievable journalist. You've often been called ACSOM's wordsmith. I mean, your words on Friday, you really struck a chord with a lot of football fans, Tony. And I think that you're right, though. It's not as though we're just talking about cliches here. We're talking about a loss of pride all season, a loss of commitment from a lot of players, some of whom are no longer at Celtic, and a loss of belief in a lot of us as supporters that we could turn it round and we could get something from this season. Kevin Graham, I'll come to yourself. Love that T-shirt, by the way. What's the story behind it?
It's from Saul Davis for James charity. Everybody belongs here, and it's got a great message. It's just got no more hate.
No more hate on today of all days. Yeah.
Yes.
He just dropped that in there, Tony, as though, you know, Saul Davis from James, you know, he's only sold 40 million records, but aye, this is a T-shirt that I need in, you know. Brilliant. And when you're looking at this season, Kev, and you're looking about trying to regain some sense of pride, I heard a comment from John Kennedy talking about there will be no sentimental decisions when he was talking about, you know, playing Scott Brown as an automatic choice. There'll be no sentimental decisions. The last game of this season won't be about Scott Brown, it'll be about Celtic. How much of that resonates with you when you look at how much we have fallen this season, that the club actually owes us, the fans, something today and something this season?
That's one way of looking at it. I mean, I'm following Tony again, a bit like Friday, when Jim came in to try and follow Tony. It's extremely difficult. The players, I would rather look. It's a very romantic notion to say the players are due or something, and I think if we were in the stadiums, the players maybe would believe that they owed us something. I just want them to look in the mirror and owe themselves something. Have a bit of professional pride. As you mentioned there, Paul, that some of them have completely chucked it. Some of them have chucked it before the start of the season. And the reason that we fell so far, I mean, we're 20 points behind. We've lost our league championship. It's almost as if our league hasn't, our season hasn't started. Everybody calls a season a roller coaster, and it really does feel like our roller coaster, we're stuck. We haven't went up the first hump yet, and we haven't made the first drop. And winning the day will set us over that drop, or either that we're just going to reverse and actually just get off and no get on no ride the roller coaster at all. I mean, it depends. What does the football gods want to do with us? Do they want to go, these are good guys, like, have a wee victory and get your season going, or they're just going to hit us with a big shovel full of poo and just go, take it. This is what you're getting. And I'm really interested. If you didn't want to play in these games, and if you didn't want to have this pressure in these games, and if you're not going to enjoy these games, then why are you a fan and why are you actually on the pitch? You've got to actually go and enjoy them. I agree with Tony. I want to see the players have some professional pride. Whether they're playing for me or not, it's up to them. They can play for whoever they want to play, but as long as they do the jersey proud, I'm going to be more than happy in that. I says on Monday that I didn't want them to come off the park with no regrets. If they come off the park with regrets, then our season's not started.
Now, Lawrence, Kevin described it as being like on a roller coaster. I think it's felt more like being on the waltzers. Just when it slows down, somebody else spins you in the opposite direction. You don't know if you're coming or going. And then when you jump off it, you're a wee bit dizzy and you feel sick. That's been my season for Celtic. When you're looking at today, how important is it to start this rebirth, this rebuild? As Tony says, tomorrow, Dominic Mackay comes into office. I'm not saying we are expecting, but there is rumbles that there may well be further announcements next week. Is this the beginning of that?
Hopefully, the players have got a chance to keep the cup record going, set another record. 5 Scottish Cups in the spin. That's what hopefully Kennedy's focusing on. As poor a season it's been, you've still got a chance to be record breakers. You need to turn up. As Tony say, we need commitment. Kev's touched on it. We need a bit of luck from the gods, and hopefully at the end of the day we'll have all the fun of the fair and a good win.
All the fun of the fair, the roller coaster, the waltzers. It's been like a ghost train sometimes this year, Tony Haggerty.
That's just the lighting in here, I think.
That is the lighting. Yeah, it is the lighting, actually. Yep. Kevin is showing everybody that I'm not as pale as I might look, or peely wally, to use a good Scottish term. Jim Orr asked me if I was ill the other day. Cheers, Jim. So let's have a look at... it is bad lighting. Yeah, it's really bad.
It is, aye.
Let's have a look at the team line. We've been speaking about it all week. Anthony Haggerty. We were in a situation where I guess the biggest worry was James Forrest because of the impact he had made in the last couple of games. So many fans had been commenting about the fact that, this is a guy who was always on the brunt, always seems to be on the brunt of Celtic fans' criticism. But everybody over the last couple of weeks seems to have realised how much we've missed him, but he's out. He hasn't made it. That's a massive blow for Celtic today, Tony.
It's a massive blow, but it depends how you approach it. He's not made it, so we bring in Christie in his position, right? So you've got to go with it. But we spoke off here just before we came on, and we're making the point that, if Elyounoussi turns up, if Edouard turns up, if Turnbull turns up, you get match winners in those 3 players alone. Christie himself, can produce a bit of magic if you get the shooting boots on. So go and win the game. Don't worry about who's not. You can't affect the fact that Forrest is not playing now. That's gone, right? Massive blow, but don't be negative. Go on the park and say, right, we've got offensive players here who can win this game. And I also said about Eddie. Eddie has to turn up and be a team player. Don't play for himself, but be a team player. Because Lawrence also said it as well off air that this is the one that could get Eddie a move. The difference between a Leicester and an Arsenal. See this game? Because the eyes of the world are on this game today. Because it's a cup tie and it's like the league's gone, and so it's the second last competitive fixture between the two sides, but a lot at stake. So a lot of people are going to be watching this. So guys like Eddie, this is the ones that usually flick his switch. Don't flick your switch, but do it in the right way. Don't play for yourself. Don't take an extra touch in the box if you can shoot. Don't take an extra touch if you can play a man in. Be a team player. And if you can link well with El Yunusi, then I think Celtic have got a great chance. Get Turnbull coming in, Christie coming from midfield. The back's always your cause for concern. The back of the pack, Laxalt in favour of Taylor. People might dispute that, but Laxalt did well the last game, so maybe the yellow jersey approach from Kennedy. And apart from Forrest, it ain't really broke there, is it? So he's not really trying to fix it too much. One in, one out. It's probably the strongest team you could have played.
See, when you're looking back at this season, it's been a long, hard slog. I remember back to the game on October, the 17th of October. I mean, it seems like a long, long time ago. And the lineup back then, if you want to compare it to today's, was Barkas, back three of Welsh, Duffy and Ayer. Frimpong, Brown and Cham, McGregor and Laxalt, up front Klamala and El Yunusi. I mean, just when you look at that team compared to the team today, Kevin, we have gone through some transformation. But one thing I am happy about is I'm far more confident about the defence than I was back in October going into the game against Rangers at Celtic Park.
I'm maybe far more confident about the whole side, not just the defence, going into today's game. And obviously, winning 6-0 last week against Livingston, it's a wee boost, eh? It gives you that wee bit of spring in your step. And it was good as a one-off. But I'm probably got a wee spring in my step today because I've seen worse Celtic teams in the 11 that's been named beat better Rangers teams on one-off games, cup ties, famous cup ties. We all know them, all can rhyme them off. And I'm going, it's a one-off game. Let's go and do it. We've done it in the mid-90s. We remember the 2 weeks, the famous 2 weeks, the St Paddy Day massacre, and can't remember what we christened the first one, eh? But they were 2 great weeks, and that was a poor Celtic side against a half-decent Rangers side. We're going into this game today as underdogs. We are underdogs. We're playing a team that we haven't beaten since December 19, and we were extremely lucky to beat them in that League Cup final. I can't remember the last time Rangers got beat at home. It's probably the last time they got a penalty given against them or somebody sent off. So we are massive underdogs going into this today. But if we turn up with no regrets, I'm quite happy with the back line apart from Laxalt. I thought Taylor would have been in there, but I understand what Lawrence and Anthony says offhand, off air. And in the first game, the first John Kennedy game, the first game of the John Kennedy part-time era, temporary era, or whatever it's going to be termed, interim era. We went in a very good state that time going into that game. We drew 1 each. It was an okay performance, but Moy and Laxalt were our 2 best players on the day. So if we're going for the 4-2-3-1 formation, we could actually go for a diamond formation, looking at the lineup as well. Then keep getting them in our partnership could do well. At the back, we're not going to make any rash judgments on Stephen Welsh, but as I say, I've started calling Stephen Welsh Welshie. I'm quite happy with him in there because his performances over the last couple of weeks. That doesn't mean to say that he's going to be the next Virgil van Dijk. That doesn't mean to say that he's even going to get game time next season. But I'm happy with him playing the day. I'm happy with Ayer playing the day. And John Joe Kenny, over the last couple of weeks, had started looking like a competent fullback, but then I was putting that down to James Forrest being in front of him. So it'll be interesting today to see how he gets on with Ryan Christie in front of him.
See, I think that's an interesting point, particularly on the left-hand side. When you look at Laxalt and Moy, how fresh in the mind of John Kennedy will that be, Lawrence, when you're looking at attacking the Rangers side down that left-hand side?
Yeah, I think it's give a boy to Moy, isn't it? He's in form. Was it 16, 17 goals this season? Yeah, he's definitely someone that we would expect are most likely to pull out a bit of magic for us. I don't know who he'll be up against. I haven't looked at the opposition's team. Who's free to play for them? I'm sure, if Moy's on form, he will cause them, a bit of damage.
Well, the Celtic team, as I'm sure everybody's aware, Bain with Kenny, Laxalt, Welsh and Ayer. Brown and McGregor, I'm guessing, will be playing in the engine room just in front of the centre halves, with Christie, Turnbull and Moy and Eddie up front. Quite a few people are saying, and I will get into the comments, Anthony Haggerty, that we need a performance from Brian Christie because he hasn't really shown up against Rangers. Do you subscribe to that?
I do, because you're judged on the big games and your performances in big games. And I think if you were to ask Ryan Christie that was probably one thing he would feel let down by himself in his career if he didn't turn up in the Rangers game. So, but Kevin was saying the people are subscribing to this notion they owe us a performance. They owe themselves a performance, just to let them see that they can actually go to their rivals' ground and win. They owe it to themselves. I mean, obviously we think they owe it to us as well, but they owe it to themselves to just get back on the winning bus, as you would say, in these kind of games. Because December 19's a long time not to win a game against Rangers. As Kevin said, well, we're lucky to win that, so it could have been longer. So just prove to yourself. I mean, John Kennedy said in midweek that on our day we're still the best team in Scotland. Well, you've talked the talk. Go and walk that walk today and do it. And show everybody that, yep, it's been a write-off of a season, but we're not as bad as people make out.
Tony, it's interesting to hear somebody like Kevin Graham talk about Celtic as being the underdogs going into Rangers. I don't think that'll ever, sit right with me. And what I mean by that, I'm not being arrogant here, because I know that the whole Celtic story is one of the greatest underdog stories ever told. And I know that when you look at some of the biggest games that Celtic have come out as victors, we have been the underdog. I don't have to tell everybody the games I'm referring to. But on the domestic scene, when you've won 9 in a row, when you've won 4 trebles in a row, the fact that Kevin Graham's sitting here talking about us as underdogs is indicative, is it not, of how far we've fallen this season?
Of course, yeah. I mean, why should you be an underdog in any Rangers game? But that it's just, the season has just been a shambles from start to finish. But as Lauren said, you've got a chance to go and create history again and create another record by winning 5 Scottish Cups in a row. And if you cannot be motivated for that alone and today's game to put out your rivals, because basically they stand between you and lifting that cup, or they should. If you put out Rangers, then you should go on and lift that Scottish Cup. That's the bottom line. So you are effectively removing your biggest danger today if you can win. But they haven't filled you with any great confidence all season, which is why we go into this, as Kevin says, as massive underdogs.
See, when we're looking at good comment coming in from Jungle Lion, Christie has to be disciplined today if Celtic want to win, and I totally agree with that, because I think the comment around Edouard is that obviously he's put himself on a stage. Sometimes that's where he performs at his absolute best, when he's on that stage, but we know that he's on his way out, and it's all about where he'll end up. There's a question mark around Christopher Ayer and whether or not he wants to remain at the club. I think that'll hinge on who comes in as the new manager. But the other the third big name, I guess, would be Ryan Christie, and a lot of people are expecting him to move. Lawrence, how important is it that he's disciplined rather than trying to make it the Ryan Christie show today?
Yeah, definitely. With Christie, sometimes he tries too hard when he comes back, gives away cheap free kicks. He needs to not be diving in. Also, it's about picking the right pass, being a team player. But you could say that, about Eddie as well. We need you to be a team player today. It's not about them or just getting shots off from anywhere. I think since Kennedy's come in, it's over 100 shots. The last few games, if you look at where we're shooting for, we're being a bit more careful where we're shooting from. And I think that's paying off in the goals for tally. So you can't all be Ryan hitting them from 30 yards. Although if he sticks one in the top corner for 30 yards, I'm not going to complain. But, it is going to be like Ryan, just pick the right pass. Don't be shooting at every opportunity. Think if there's somebody better in a better position, play him in. Don't just be hitting a dick.
Now, this is coming in from Tom, the greatest underdog story ever told. Well, if you know your unbroken history, Tom, you will know that the Celtic story is one of the greatest underdog stories ever told. And today, even if we are going in as the underdogs, Kevin Graham, how confident are you? I mean, the last couple of games, I don't think that we've seen a Rangers side that is completely dominated us. I think that the back line, which has been the biggest concern all season, John Kennedy seems to have resolved that for the time being. I still don't think Scott Bain going forward is our number one goalkeeper, but he's running with him and that's fine, and there's getting an understanding between him and Welsh and Ayer. I've already said for next season, for a bit of continuity, I would see if we could potentially extend the loan deals of Kenny and Laxalt. For me, I think that would be key, because there's going to be a lot of new faces coming in. When we're going into today's game, albeit as the underdog, Kevin, are you quietly confident that we're going to get a result today?
Look, I'm in that wee zone, that meditation zone that you actually get before the game kicks off, where it doesn't matter who you're playing, Real, Barcelona, Real Madrid, who the hell you're trying to kid, I believe we'll beat anybody when you're 25 minutes, 40 minutes before kick-off. So it doesn't matter who you're playing or what's their resources, if we haven't bet them in a year and a half and that, I still believe we can win. You read that team out on the 17th of October there. That 11 that we've got today is far better than that team on the October 11th. Mm-hmm. And we've got to actually cling on to that like a man with an itchy back hanging for a cliff. Because that's what we are. We're this man hanging for the cliff. Our season's hanging for the cliff edge here. And if we can manage to clamber up the day, get on top of that, then let's go for it. I'm confident. I've got to be confident at this point, and it's green tinted specs, I know that, and it probably hasn't got any basis in reality, but when do you ever have any basis in reality?
Well, Kev, let's just tune in on a Tuesday night for Schema Celica and we'll know all about it. Now, Lawrence, you were talking about the opposition today. They are lining up as McGregor, Patterson, Goldson, Helander, Barisic, Davis, Kamara, Arfield, Arabo, Kent and Morelos. So there answers your question in relation to the left-hand side. I think that is going to be key to Celtic today when you look at the way the opposition is lining up.
Yeah, definitely. It's where we've got strongest players. Last Glasgow derby, I thought Diego and Moy were the best two players in the park. Hopefully, they have another good game today. It's really about our players. I think man for man, if we turn up and we're on our game, so John Kennedy said, we're the best team out there on our day. And it's, are they going to turn up today? They're going to show the commitment and a bit of magic. In these games we haven't had much luck recently, whether it's own goals or refs unsighted. Hopefully, these things even themselves out over a season, so we've been told. So I'm expecting to be evened out today, and get the break of the ball or a ref decision maybe. You never know.
It's interesting. Sorry, Lawrence, to jump in there, but it's interesting that the guy Patterson's out there, because the last game at Celtic Park, I can't remember who was out there, but he played like he was towing a bungalow, and Moy and Laxalt completely were better on the left-hand side in the first. I think he got took off at half-time for Patterson. Did you know the guy that was out there? So it's interesting that they've done whatever they've done with their COVID appeals so Patterson can get into the game.
Tony, there's a point coming in from David Stalker, which I totally agree with. Eddie Howe will attract players. When we're looking at this Celtic squad, and I'm talking about continuity, and people will disagree with this, we're very, very light on fullbacks, both sides of the park, right? We know that. So you've got, if you remove the loanees, you've got Greg Taylor, and behind him, potentially Leo Held, who's currently at Ross County, and who can perform on the left-hand side of the centre-half position as well. On the right-hand side, once Kenny goes back to Everton, if indeed he does, you're left with one right-back and Anthony Ralston. So my point around keeping the full-backs for extended loans would be for that very reason, Tony, and to ensure that we've got a couple of players who are already embedded in the club, they're familiar with their teammates, because there's going to be so much work done. I would also argue that there's a few loanees that have gone out and done well elsewhere that should be recalled, rather than try and buy a second or a third choice centre half. I would be far more inclined to maybe bring back Hendry and assess him. There's a few others in relation to maybe even Sved. When you look at the right hand side, we're very, very short on the right. Looks like Christie's going to be going, but how pivotal will it be, the manager coming in, when you look at the big names that might be departing? Ayer, Christie, Edouard. Do you think someone like Eddie Howe could convince someone like Chris Ayer to stay longer, or Ryan Christie, or even Odsonne Edouard?
I believe he could. Just depends if those guys work with somebody like Eddie Howe. When Martin O'Neill came in, I think he convinced a couple to stay. Henrik might have been one of them. Who would be eyeing a move away, but he stayed, and the rest's history after that. So, first and foremost, you've got to know if it is Eddie Howe. And Eddie Howe is a manager who will command and attract players, command the attention of players, and he will attract players to sign for your football club. The ones that you're talking about, yeah, for the continuity angle with Kenny and Laxalt, yes, possibly, but I'd like to think if it's Eddie Howe, that Eddie Howe's been actually working behind the scenes before he's coming in and scouted players. And when he does come in, it's a question of saying, right, you can go get him, and him. I'd like to think that's what's happening. Because see, if it's not, then you're approaching, the Champions League qualifiers, and, you'll be ill prepared again and playing Russian roulette again with it. We have to have a manager come in soon. My thoughts on it about the clock ticking down with the days and stuff, so don't need to go into that. But the players you've mentioned possibly staying, yeah, I would inquire about it. But again, as a new manager, if it is Howe, does he want Laxalt? Does he want John Joe Kenny? And Hendry. Jack Hendry's an interesting conundrum. I think you have to get Jack Hendry back to have a look at him to see and give him X amount of games to see if he can cut the mustard as a Celtic player. People were too quick to judge him, but Brendan Rodgers clearly saw something in him. And Brendan Rodgers not really argue with his judgment in players, a couple possibly, but so he thought he could improve him. So surely by going out and playing football, he has improved. But he has to, if Celtic want to give him another chance, and he has to come back into the fold and show that willing and show that attitude and shows that he's improved. Failing that, you're looking for another centre-back if you can't convince that to stay.
It's an interesting point. How many days are we? 89 days away for the Champions League qualifiers, And take a note of this 11 and see how many of this 11 are kick off in 89 days. Yeah. That's going to be a really interesting point. Whoever is the manager, and whoever is the manager, and I've been saying this for weeks, I believe whoever the manager is already watching this team. Yeah, and is already making up his mind on what.
They wouldn't be doing that, Kev, because it would just be gross and utter negligence of Celtic if that wasn't the case. That they're saying to the manager, look, here's everything you need to know. You go and do your due diligence just now, back there in the background, and then come in and we hit the ground running. And I'm hoping that that's the chain of events that happens today. Celtic win, Mackay comes in, sometime this week we get a DOF and a new manager, and then everything starts falling into place. We start to get players, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we all know, Tony, that the season book renewals are not going to go drop through our letterboxes with Peter Lawwell's and John Kennedy's name on them. That's not going to happen.
They can't, because I told you before when we were talking about Tier 2 lockdown, I said Celtic will stay in Tier 2 because they will shut down 2 tiers of that stadium. You know what I mean? If John Kennedy is the new manager of Celtic, and that's no slight on John Kennedy, it's just the way people are feeling after the season, and they feel badly let down.
I mean, even Kennedy himself, for his reputation, if he pulls a victory out the bag of the day, it's going to do his reputation well for when or if he does leave Celtic in the summer. Then he can go and get another job, saying, "Well, I've done the best. I turned that team around for the last 5 weeks of that season. I done a good job there. I think that looks great on my CV." And he's probably looking for hussies round about the Leicester area, I think, anyway.
I think he should be Celtic Colts manager next season, but that's another discussion entirely, Kev. Now, we actually have 3 other contributors to a Celtic State of Mind waiting in the wings. OCD CSC is going to come into play here, so I'm going to bring them in one by one and see how it looks. Even if I need to drop out and let you guys run for half an hour, we'll do that. I've never had 6 or 7 ACSOM contributors on the page at any one time. So first of all, drum roll, first up is the presenter of the Celtic State of Minds Bulletin on a Friday, Miss Laura Bradburn. How are you doing, Laura?
Fine. I was expecting some entrance music there. I was going to give it my Hulk Hogan. Like,
I know. Well, I could have asked for the tune, but who knows? It might have been Westlife or Boyzone that you requested, right?
Bit of Flying Without Wings would have been great. Fine.
And I think you are wearing your green hoodie, and that goes on the back of what Lawrence was recommending last night.
Yes, green hoodie, black jeans all the way. I've not yet got some green and white trainers, but I'm on it.
Kev, show us your ZX, whatever they are.
Oh, I need to put them up.
Brian McClare has already told us that he knows a Celtic fan walking down the street if he's wearing something like that. So there you go, Lawrence Haggerty today. Is that good enough match day attire, Lawrence?
It's getting there, mate. You know, I've went for obviously Adidas, white, green stripes, a pair of Stan Smiths.
That's tremendous. I'm wearing nothing from the waist down. Now coming in next is JP Mason.
It's true.
JP Mason, the man who joins us on a Thursday. Got Laura a wee bit flustered there, sorry Laura. And you come JP Mason.
Laura,
how are you doing? Oh, look at that tracksuit. Wow.
You got me flustered there as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing to get flustered about. I can confirm that.
Now, 93 days. Is that 93 days to our first Champions League qualifier, JP?
That's the Tony Haggerty countdown.
Wow. Now, this 6 screens on the broadcast is looking quite good. I don't know what's going to happen when we bring in the 7th. If it does mess up my OCD, I might have to drop out and leave you guys to it. But here we go, all the way from Hungary, is our Hungarian correspondent, Kevin McCluskey. Oh, that looks good. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm doing good, Paul. How are you?
I'm good. Us three, the early risers, which is quite surprising when you consider what Lawrence put away last night. We've already spoken about the team. Laura Bradburn, what's your thoughts on the lineup?
I'm quite encouraged by it. I have to say I had a wee giggle to myself when I saw Axel in there, given the history of what's been going on with me on Twitter the last couple of weeks. But it looks strong, like Kevin was saying before I came on. When you compare that to the one that fielded in October, you would actually say that I would probably be more confident of getting a result today than I was back then. So, I can't see any issues with it. Obviously, I'm sort of disappointed that Forrest hasn't made the game, but I would rather that, for his sake, that we didn't take any chances with him, given that he's still so early in his recovery period. So if we have to wait a little bit longer to get a consistent role from him in the team, then I'm willing to do that.
This looks like University Challenge, and Kevin is the host. So the top row against the bottom row. Let's have a wee chat. JP, let's go back to that tracksuit top. First thing I want to know, is it an original?
It's not, no. And I know. But check this out.
Oh wow. Nice one.
Oh,
like it.
right.
Looks like a player issue.
At least they've done it. At least they've done it right. Do you know what I mean? And I have to be honest. I waited 6 weeks for it to arrive. It arrived yesterday, and I was emailing the guy going, "This isn't happening, is it? I'm not getting this top. It's not a real thing." And then the next thing, it arrived yesterday, and I opened it, and I was like, "Oh my god, I have a replica Celtic Centenary tracksuit top," and I had one when I was a wee guy, so I remember what it was like, and it's exactly the same. So, I'm not going to make any apologies for that.
Can you remember, JP, there was also a very natty jersey. So it was the same design, but it was a cotton jersey where it had the centenary collar on it.
Yeah.
Did you have one of them?
No,
they
I
were
didn't.
crackers.
I remember that, and there was an advert in the programmes of all the kit together, and that jumper or the jersey, whatever it was in amongst the centenary home strip and this tracky top. So I remember it.
I remember going into that season, Kevin McCluskey, as the underdog. Celtic went into that season having lost a whole host of first-team regulars. The rebuild job was done by Billy McNeil, and we know how the job ended with a historic double in the centenary season. Kevin Graham just brought us all back to reality today by saying that we are going into this game as underdogs. I'm not comfortable with that. Isn't it about time that we reverse the balance again, Kevin? McCluskey, that is.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. I think we've had 9 years, it's been the favourites, been the big dogs in this game. It's not a nice feeling to be the underdog. But, I mean, I remember when I was a lad, I went through 10 years of Celtic not winning anything. So it's something we're used to. We don't like it. Yeah, I think it's about time we put it right today.
You know, another big question mark is around Turnbull. One of the ACSOM contributors actually suggested over the last 7 days that, you know, he should get dropped for Christie. That was before we knew that Forrest wasn't going to make it. Now, Laura, I'm going to come to you on that one. Obviously, because I know you're a big fan. With the news that Ryan Jacks dropped out of the Scotland squad, has there been any update in relation to Turnbull making it? Has he been announced as replacing him?
Not that I'm aware of, because I don't think they've actually come out and named the Scotland squad officially for the Euros, so I think he should have been in there from the start. But yeah, I mean, I struggle to remember who it was that called for him to be dropped, but I really don't see that being sort of an option. He's by far probably our most naturally gifted footballer at the club. Him and Eddie are probably up there, and I don't see why you don't think about building the team around him in years to come. We heard Paul Lambert on the Football Insomniac last night with Colin Watt talking about Paul McStay coming in and talking to him and kind of handing the baton over, if you like, and I see Turnbull as being that for the next generation of Celtic fans for the next 10 years. He could be the kind of linchpin for us. And I know we're talking about a different time period now and we might not have him for as long, but if we can keep him for as long as we can and make him the sort of fulcrum of the team, then I think it can only do us good.
See, when we're looking at this season, Kevin Graham, and you look at that team just in October, you know, Turnbull wasn't obviously part of that side. Welsh had been thrown in. And I was actually surprised when I looked at that team that Ncham started. I do remember the photograph after or near the end of the game with Ncham sitting on the in the stand as if he couldn't care less what was happening on the park, and Welsh was devastated having been taken off. When you're looking at the impact of Turnbull, and I would also add to that Stephen Welsh, these are the types of people surely that we need to build our team around moving forward. I'm not subscribing to the fact that we bring in two centre-halves and Welsh is just a sub or he's rarely used next season. Surely he's proved himself that he is suitable for a Celtic first-team jersey.
I think he's proved himself that he's suitable to be in the mix, to be in the equation, to be considered. I mean, we're talking about next season, and it's obvious that Welsh and Turnbull are going to be in the building next season, but we don't know who else is going to be in the building next season. But you know me, the socialist romantic that I think we should be building the team around Stephen Welsh. I think we should be building the team around Turnbull. I think we should be looking at our youth system. We should be looking to develop players, and we should be like, at this point next season, we should have a mixture. I want the average age of the team to be 22, made up of guys for the academy, and I want us to be, as Tony quite rightly says, free-flowing, always exciting Celtic. That's what I want us to be, and I want Stephen Welsh to be part of that. He might not be, who knows, but
you know the thing, I don't think it is about being overly romantic about this, because Celtic haven't produced Anthony Haggerty enough centre-halves, goalkeepers or centre-forwards for the last 30 years. And it's about time that when somebody comes in like Welsh, and I think that every challenge that he's faced this season, he's overcome it. Now, yeah, he's made mistakes, of course he has, because that's what young players do and that's how they learn from those mistakes and develop. But I don't like the idea of it's almost now a given that everybody says, well, Turnbull's a shining light, and we forget about Welsh. I don't underestimate the impact Welsh has made.
Welsh has made a fantastic impact, but bearing in mind it's been a terrible season. See if everything had gone to plan, would Welsh be in the team? Conjecture, possibly not, if it all worked out well with Duffy. Right, okay, it didn't, which is why Welsh has got his chance. So you have to be careful with the boy as well. You don't want to be pigeonholing him and saying he's the next massive thing. Just let him breathe and let him get on with the business at hand, and that's playing football matches for Celtic, which he clearly loves to do. Don't put any undue pressure on him, unnecessary pressure, by saying he's the kind of guy we need to build a team around. Just let him mature into the player he's going to be, because that way you will discover if you can build a team around him. But see, piling pressure on, saying things like, this is a guy we need to build a team around, you know, that's a big, big thing. The boy's just broke into the team and he's played well. He's young, he's raw, but the material looks to be there. Let's see where he goes. Just let him play out the rest of the season. And if somebody like Eddie Howe comes in, then hopefully a coach like him can make him a better player. And the young guy will go on to be the player we all hope he becomes, and we'll be proud of him because he's young and he's came through the system. But I just see this constant pigeonholing and saying that this guy's going to be great or he's going to be this or that. Just let him breathe and play his football because he's loving it, he's enjoying it, and he has to be allowed to do that. And just without the pressure of you must be this player or that player. He's a defender first and foremost. He's shown an aptitude for it, and we move forward and we hope that he turns out to be something special.
Do you think, JP, that a player like Stephen Welsh has come in? Yeah, there's been a lot of difficulties this season. Do you think he's come in at a time, though, that the added pressure, the 60,000 fans at Celtic Park, which obviously can be a difficult proposition for even the most experienced of players, do you think that's worked in his favour, the fact that he hasn't had to face that additional pressure?
Quite possibly. I wish that wasn't the case, but for him individually, it might well be. I mean, was he not on loan at Greenock Morton last season?
Yeah.
I don't recall hearing reports of him pulling up trees at Greenock Morton. Do you know what I mean? So it's not as if he came back to us with this sort of glowing reputation, having been there and done really well. So he got bombed out after that Rangers game at Celtic Park. Remember, we didn't see him for months. I can't even recall when he came back in, but it wasn't for a long time after that game. So he's had to sort of lick his wounds in a sense, and I'm really glad that he's still here and he's signed a new contract and obviously sees this next 4 years as part of his development at Celtic, rather than losing yet another young prospect to wherever, Bayern Munich or wherever.
That's a good point. I mean, he's committed to the club.
Yeah,
But a lot of youngsters are not committing to the club, so he's committed to the club. And I get where Tony's coming from. I just want all the young laddies that come in for our youth academy to do well, But I understand we've got to let them breathe. We've got to see where it takes them, They might not be good enough. They might be good enough.
I wouldn't have you, Kevin, per se. I was just
no, it's fine.
Just kind of let them do their thing and be who they're going to be.
It's what we do as football fans, Tony. We want instant gratification. We want instant labels, and we want So things take time.
The big thing for me, looking at the situation that we were in January, where we were forced to throw in some kids, let's call them kids, and for me, a lot of them weren't ready. They weren't ready for the step up. Now, that's bad on Celtic because we should have developed them enough. They should have had enough first team football so that when we have to throw 3 or 4 youths into the team, then they're ready for it at 17, 18, 19 years of age. But I think what became pretty clear was people like Cameron Harper, for example, weren't ready. I mean, I don't even think Dembele looked ready. He made absolutely no impact whatsoever. Okaflex came as a rising star from Arsenal under Brendan Rodgers. Didn't look ready, missed a sitter that night, didn't give him a hard time for it because he's a young player. But I think that we're in a situation now that whoever comes in, you should have a first team squad, and we've got a very big squad at the moment, but a first team squad of around between 23 and 25, and every other young player that isn't playing regular football, if we don't have a coach team, every single one of them needs to be loaned out and get first team football. And I think that needs to happen like immediately. That you cannot have a situation where Karamoko Dembele's not playing for the first team, so he's not playing. Because then when you try and throw him in, it looks like a shadow of the player that we've seen making an appearance against Hearts a few years ago or against Cluj. I mean, this is a kid who was on the bench for the Scottish Cup final against Hearts. And, it looks as though he's going to be leaving. Who knows what the career in the future will hold for him. But I just think it's a bad situation for Celtic to be in where we can't, call on 4 or 5 young players who have had enough first-team experience. I mean, that Rangers game, Laura, you'll remember when Welsh was thrown into that. And that was due to, obviously, various issues leading up to the game. I mean, Klimala only started that because Ajeti pulled out before the game, on the day of the game. That's why Klimala started. And he's been thrown into that. Prior to that game, Stephen Welsh had played 1 first-team game for Celtic, and it was against Hamilton. We shouldn't be in a situation like that. We've dominated for 9 years, quadruple treble. We should have been able to give a centre-half or a promising left-back, wherever they are on the park, enough game time so that it's not a shock to the system when we throw them in.
No, I think they don't get enough chances, and as JP said, there seems to be this consistency issue that happened with Welsh. I could name other players like Jack Aitchison, the Henderson brothers, Marcus Fraser going back a wee bit further, who come in and I think do decent jobs and yet don't seem to get any further chances than an initial break into the team, and they must be thinking to themselves, well, I can't even guarantee that I'm going to progress my career even if I do get a few first team appearances under my belt. And as I said when Cameron Harper left, he stated in the interview that he did when he joined the team in the MLS that the new manager that he went to play under put a very clear map out for him of how he could get into the first team and what his roadmap would be for doing that, and that if he did get in, he would have a consistent chance to have that place. And I think at Celtic it's far too inconsistent. You don't know when your chance is going to come. It might come in a massive game that there's a lot of pressure, and then there's no guarantee thereafter that you're even going to stay in the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Lawrence, I'm going to come to you first on a point that's been raised by Ian McGinley, who comes in to say, I like being the underdog. Now, interestingly enough, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I did speak to someone, Celtic supporter, lifelong fan, who said this very thing to me, that they were never, believe this or not, and I won't name them, they were never comfortable dominating as we have dominated. Now, I think that's an absolute nonsense. I don't like being the underdog. Maybe when you go into a European game, there's always going to be European giants and, you know, the underdog label when you're playing at home at Celtic Park. I think we thrive on that. But the underdog in a domestic sense, Lawrence Conley, let's put this one to bed, surely.
Yeah, we're the biggest club in Scotland. We shouldn't ever be the underdog if we're performing properly. It's down to players not turning up this season. On paper, if you look at the squads, you know, I don't see. I see our players being rumoured away, and clubs like AC Milan talk about our players. You don't see that in any other club in Scotland. You know, we have a quality player that other teams don't have. So for me, being the underdog, I don't think it is acceptable with the resources we have to be put in a position in Scotland that we are the underdog. And I think that just shows how much a failure that the season's been. You know, if the players had played to their potential, we should have been running away with things again. But we haven't. So hopefully they can rectify it today, get a good win, and on the way to 5 Scottish Cups in a bounce.
Here's hoping. Kevin McCluskey, Niz comes in to say being the underdog stops complacency. Now, I can't have it both ways because I've been talking about complacency all season. Did that creep in when we were dominating all before us? I don't think that necessarily means that we should just be comfortable being the underdog, especially in domestic football.
Yeah, I agree with Lawrence completely on that one. In domestic football, Celtic should never be the underdog in Scotland. But I do think that there must be something behind that argument that the dominance that we had led to complacency creeping in. And you see that in the performances of guys like Christie and Edward this season, when they've all underperformed. And today, I think it was Lawrence earlier as well, or maybe Anthony, was saying, if Christie turns up, if Edward turns up, if Moy turns up, we'll win. Well, last season we didn't have to ask if they will, because we just knew they would. And you feel that there now is that bit of complacency that they almost expected to win.
Now, interesting enough, I said this before we came on live. I said it to Anthony Haggerty, Montgomery on the bench. I found that to be quite an interesting selection, Anthony Haggerty, because although he appears on the Celtic website as a centre forward, we've converted him like... I was going to say Calvin Harris. It wasn't a Calvin Harris. What was the guy's name?
Miller.
Calvin Miller. We've converted him to a left back. Calvin Harris is bound to be a Celtic fan anyway, from Dumfries. Is he a JP? You'll know.
He's not.
Is he not? Right, we'll leave that there. We don't even want to know. We don't even want to know who he supports. Right, so Montgomery's on the bench, Anthony Haggerty, and the one player that I thought might have made it to the bench, Mikey Johnson, he's disappeared from view. Is that a concern, or is he just flattered to deceive, really?
It's not a concern for me, because I spoke to you off air about my thoughts on Mikey Johnson. I'll keep it cleaner for the broadcast. I just don't see where Mikey Johnson fits in at Celtic. I really don't. He does flatter to deceive. I just think Mikey Johnson, another one who could benefit from a loan spell somewhere or another loan spell somewhere, and really massively upping and improving his game, because I think he's work cut out if he's going to become a regular Celtic player. Just my thoughts, I just can't see it. I don't know what he brings to the table, and I struggle with the thought that Mikey Johnson is the future of Celtic, because I don't rate him. To be honest, I just don't rate him as a footballer. I think he might well flourish somewhere else, but I just don't think that'll be at Celtic. People will obviously disagree with that, but he's not done enough to convince me that he is a future star or a future player for Celtic.
Kev, what's your thoughts on this? I mean, he played games under Brendan Rodgers, but I tell you, before his injury, Neil Lennon utilised him a lot in his side. Do you think he has regressed during the last 18 months or so?
You've got to put it down to injuries, but this summer is a massive summer for Mikey Johnson. He can either go one way, he can either go Tony's way, or he can either jump onto the whoever's bandwagon it's going to be. So he's got a big summer coming up. I think he's got talent. Whether he's got the physicality or the application to make that talent count is still to be proved yet. But I think there's been circumstances surrounding that. I'm just want to go back to the underdog thing, and we're no favourites. If you didn't like the term underdogs, we're no favourites going into today's game. And as Lawrence quite rightly pointed out, with our resource, no being favourites, just showing how badly we've used those resources this season. But I've always seen Celtic as a sort of underdog because of how we were formed and our backstory, and the fact that there's a very high percentage of the population of Scotland always want us to get beat. So we're always the underdog when it comes to these games and other games where there's big things at stake.
That's understandable. Now, follower Celtic comes in to say Mikey Johnston, another Brian McLaughlin. You'll remember Brian McLaughlin,
Eddie
JP Mason, wee Eddie. Came in a blaze of glory. I think he was given his chance by Tommy Burns, was he not? And before you knew it, he was actually being called the next Jimmy Johnson compared to Jinky, and that shows you, Tony, how we shouldn't really compare players to those of the past. Someone also comes in to say, JP, and I'll let you explain this, what is that 93 behind you for?
Well, it was 96 the other day, and it was 103 the time before that, and it's the days until the first Champions League qualifier. I put it up as a tip of the cap to Tony Haggerty, who was banging on about how it was 100 days to the Champions League qualifier, and there's now 93 days until the 20th or the 21st of July.
It's like a Tim Advent calendar.
Which means it's only 92 days till we announce a new manager.
Yeah, on the plane there.
Laura, on that point, I'll come to you, seeing how you brought it up. Now, there is the train of thought that Dominic Mackay apparently will be at the game today, so he is going to take charge. Well, he's not going to take charge, he's going to enter the building tomorrow. Kevin Graham's already told us what he's going to do for his first week at Celtic Park, whilst Peter Lowell's still there. It would be brilliant, obviously, for the club to get a win today. Do you think we'll see other appointments and then, quite quickly thereafter, the season ticket renewal forms?
I really hope so. I know that Kevin and Tony were saying before we came on here that the Celtic wouldn't put out a season ticket renewal form with Peter Lowell and John Kennedy's name on it. Given some of the stuff that's happened this season, I think that's far from the worst thing they could have done, or the worst thing they would have done. But I really hope to see this week being the start of sort of getting the ball rolling and moving forward. I would hope to see an appointment by sort of this time next week. I know it's wishful thinking, but I've got a feeling that things are already in place from what I'm hearing, and that hopefully it's just a case of timing and it's sooner rather than later.
Alfred Nobel comes in. Has Paul updated his Premier Sports subscription? are you a rep, Alfred? How do you know? How do you know? I've had an email asking me to update that. Right, I'm going to run round the ACSOM room. I'm going to start from the top. Kevin Graham, I want to know, will there be any penalties or red cards today? Who's going to be the main man, and what's your prediction?
Right, I may as well get the green tinted specs on here. I think we're going to win 2-0. Callum McGregor's going to score and Moy's going to score. McGregor's going to score after 23 minutes, Moy after 76, and Scott Brown's going to get sent off in the 89th minute for scalping Morelos in the face with a ball.
Just with the ball?
Just with the ball, aye.
Okay, interesting prediction there from Kevin Graham. Anthony Haggerty, how do you see today going? Who's going to be the main man today? Who's going to be the game changer for Celtic?
I think Eddie and Moy will step up to the plate today. I really do. I think Celtic will probably win 2-1, and I think Bobby will just ref the match. There'll be no red cards and no penalties because he'll want to just get the hell out of Dodge without being the finger of suspicion being pointed his way. So I just think he'll ref it the way it should be ref. Not asking for favours or whatever. Just ref the match. Fairness. That's what every team wants from any referee. It's fairness. And I think he'll do that today.
Absolutely. JP, over to yourself. How do you see today going?
Well, I got the last prediction spot on. I said one each, if you remember rightly. And I'm going to go 1-0. And I might even, I don't want to be as bold as to suggest the scorer, but I've got a funny feeling Ryan Christie's going to make us all eat our words today. And I really hope I'm right.
And also the words of the Falkirk social media guy or girl.
Yeah, hi.
Laura Bradburn, how's it going to go today?
I'm really tempted, Kevin put in the group chat before the game, I'm really tempted to say 1-0 and it's going to be Laxalt with a screamer from about 40 yards, but I'll be a bit more sensible than that and stick to what my prediction was yesterday and say 3-1 and Turnbull to score first.
Nice. Lawrence Conley, I'll come back to the initial question. Penalties or red cards today?
It's Bobby Madden reffing. Are you nuts? We've got the COVID reffing the COVID party animals today, so we're not getting anything off of Brother Madden, are we?
And how do you see today going? Who's going to be the main man for Celtic? Are we going to get a performance from someone like Ryan Christie? El Yunus has shown it already. David Turnbull. How do you see the game going, Lawrence?
I'm hoping that we turn up. If we do, I think we'll win 4-0. I'm going to go French Eddie, banging at least 2 of them in.
Are you still drinking that red wine for last night?
I love your optimism, Lawrence. I love your optimism, my friend. Kevin McCluskey, our Hungarian correspondent, watching from afar. How do you see today going?
I'm sticking with the 1-0 Laxalt thunderbolt from 45 yards out in the last minute.
So hope that's true.
I like that. Now, I'm just checking to see who said it would be 2-1. That was Tony Haggerty. I've been quite bullish in the WhatsApp group, but I agree with you, Tony, and I think the scoring will be opened by a Chris Ayer towering header for Celtic. So 2-1 Celtic is my prediction as well.
He'll never score a towering header.
There is confidence in the ACSOM broadcast room today, which is always nice to see. But I know that everybody's going to be scrambling about for his goal streams and all that kind of stuff. If you've not subscribed, as Alfred Mobile reminded me, if you've not subscribed to Premier Sports, go and find your stream, and we'll be back at half time. And in fact, all 7 of us should probably join half time to see where we are in terms of the predictions. Enjoy the game. Thanks to everybody for getting involved, and thanks for the ACSOM team for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.